Good morning, students. Today we're going to discuss about the tissue. We know that the tissue is a group of cells which has a common structure and functions. The tissues can organize into the organs, and organs can organize into the organ systems, and in this way, the organ system which help us to protect our body. Organ systems in the mammals, we know that we have the organ system like digestive system, circulatory system, respiratory system, immune and lymphatic system, excretory system, endocrine system, a reproductive system, nerve system, integratory system, skeletal system, and muscular system. All the system which helps to coordinate to make a proper organism. The epithelial tissue in singular is called epithelia. The tissues which actually covers the outside of the body and line organs, and this because the epithelial cells are closely packed, and which has a very important function is the barrier against the injury and pathogens and fluid loss. The epithelia forms integuments with these tissues are present at the site of nasal passages, which is crucial for the smell and which is has a different shapes and arrangements. The cuboidal epithelial tissues are dice-shaped and specialized for secretions and makes of the kidney tubules, as well as it makes many other glands including thyroid glands and salivary glands. The next tissues are simple columnar epithelial tissues. They looks like a brick shaped, and these tissues are found at the site of active secretion. This tissue found at the site of secretion or active absorption, and this is present at the site of small intestine. The next type of tissue is simple squamous epithelial tissues. These tissues are a single layer plate-like cells that forms a simple squamous epithelium function in exchange of materials by diffusion. This type of epithelium which is leaky and present at the blood vessels and lungs alveoli. The next type of tissues are pseudostratified columnar epithelial tissues. These tissues consist of single layer of cells varying in height and the positions of the nuclei. In many vertebrates, the pseudostratified epithelial tissues are ciliated. Ciliated cells forms a mucous membrane that lines the portion of the respiratory tracts. The beating cilia. The beating cilia sweeps the film along the mucous surface. The next type of tissues are stratified squamous epithelial tissues. These tissues are actually a type of the epithelial tissue is multi-layered and regenerates rapidly. New cells formed by divisions of near the basal surface and push outwards. These tissues are replacing cells that are dislodged of this epithelium is a common laying found on the surface subject to the these tissues is commonly found on the surface subject to abrasion such as the outer skin and the lining of mouth. The next type of tissues are epithelial tissues. We know that epithelial tissues are of a different type like simple epithelial tissues, simple columnar epithelial tissues, stratified squamous epithelial tissue, simple squamous epithelial tissue, pseudo stratified columnar epithelial tissues. So these are tissues which coordinate to make the function and proper functioning of the body. The next tissue we are going to discuss about the connective tissues which make by the three fibers are of three kinds. One is collagenous fibers, reticulate fiber and elastic fiber. Let us be going to discuss in detail about it. The loose connective tissues. This is the most widespread connective tissues in the vertebrate body. It's a loose connective tissue which binds up epithelia to the underlying tissues and holds the organ. Holds the organ in a place. Loose connective tissues gets its name from the loose waves of its fiber, which includes all three types. It's found in the skin and throughout the body. The fibrous connective tissues is dense with the collagenous fiber. It is found in the tendons, which attach the muscles to bones, and in the ligaments, which connects the bones at the joints. So these tissues actually joins the bones to bone as well as Bone to muscle. The next type of tissues are bones. The bones is a skeletal. Most vertebrates is made up of bones, a mineralized connective tissue. Bones forming the cells called the osteoblast deposit a matrix of collagen, calcium, magnesium, and phosphate ions combines into a hard mineral within a matrix. The microscopic structure of hard mammalian bone consists of repeating units called the osteon. Each osteon has a concentric layer of the mineralized matrix which are deposited around the central canal containing the blood vessels and nerves. The next type of connective tissues are blood. Blood has liquid extracellular matrix called the plasma, which consists of water, salt, dissolved protein suspended in the plasma, and erythrocytes, red blood cells, leukocyte means white blood cells, and cell fragments like platelets. Red blood cells carry oxygen while the white blood cell defense. The white blood cells actually functions in a defense, and platelets are aid in the blood clotting. The next type of connective tissues are cartilage. Cartilage contains collagenous fiber embedded in a rubbery protein, carbohydrates, and complex called the chondroitin sulfate. Cells are called chondrocyte, secretes the collagen and chondroitin sulfate, which together makes the cartilage a strong yet flexible, supports the material. The skeleton of many vertebrates embryos contain cartilage that is replaced by bones as an embryo matures. Cartilage remains in some locations, such as the disc that acts as a cushion between the vertebrae. Now, let us summarize the connective tissues. We have the connective tissues, which actually the loose connective tissues and fibrous connective tissues. The connective tissues are bone, adipose tissue, cartilage, blood. The next type of tissue we're going to discuss about the muscle tissues. The muscle tissues are mainly of three types: skeletal, then smooth, and cardiac muscles tissues, which help us to make a movement, and which they present a one of the very important type of protein that is called as contractile proteins, which help us to make the movement of the body. Let us we discuss in detail about this. Yes, now we're going to discuss about the skeletal muscles, which attach to the bones by tendons. Skeletal muscles are stated muscle is responsible for the voluntary movements. Skeletal muscles consist of bundles of long cells that are called the muscle fiber. During the development, the skeletal muscles fiber forms by the fusion of many cells, resulting in the multiple nuclei and each muscle fiber. The arrangement of the contractile unit or sarcomeres, also the fiber, gives the cells a striped or stated appearance. In adult mammals, building muscle increases the size but not the number of muscle fibers. So now we're going to discuss about the next issues are smooth muscles, which lacks a station, is found in the walls of digestive tracts, urinary bladder, arteries, and other internal organs. The cells are spindle shaped. Smooth muscles are responsible for involuntary body activities such as churning of a stomach and constriction of the arteries of the blood vessels. So, this is actually the involuntary type of muscles. The next type of tissue we're going to discuss the cardiac muscles. The cardiac muscles forms the contractile of heart. It stated like the skeletal muscles and has a similar contractile properties. Unlike the skeletal muscles, however, cardiac muscles has a branched fiber that interferes interconnected with the intercalated disc, which relay the signal from the cell to cell and help the synchronization of the heart contraction. Let us now summarize all the muscles. We have discussed about the skeletal muscle, smooth muscles, and cardiac muscles. Skeletal muscles are present in the bones, ligaments. Smooth muscles are present in the urinary bladder, arteries, and the digestive tracts. The cardiac muscles are the muscles of our hearts. So the last type of tissue we're going to discuss is the nervous tissue. So the nervous tissues are actually made up of nervous systems. That nervous systems which receives, process, and transmit the information, and the nervous tissue contains the neurons, nerve cells, which transmit the nerve impulses as well as support the cells called the glial cells or simply glia. Neurons are the basic units of the nervous system. A neuron receives nerve impulses from other neurons via its cell body and multiple extensions called the dendrites. Neurons transmit the impulses to the neurons, muscles, or other cells via neurons transmit the impulses to neurons, to muscles, or other cells via extension called axons, which are often bundled together into other nerves. I hope that you have enjoyed the. Thank you very much for watching and listening the lesson tissue.